to Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings, and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wilding in the stand. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gonna be our year. We're here drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring. Yeah.
What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds, a Sacramento Kings YouTube channel for fans by fans. It's Tuesday, and Calvin and I are here talking about some updates to your Sacramento Kings. Just want to remind you all real quick, please smash up that like button if you are a Kings fan, and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Calvin, we just saw episode 2 of The Run, just premiered a day ago, so let's just watch a little bit here to start out the show. Also, don't forget, hit the like button.
Sean! Ice! Hey! Good. Bring it in. Good job. Hard work on 3, 1, 2, 3. Hard work. Good job today. Good energy. The challenge is, can we do it tomorrow? And are you guys going to be that tired that you're not going to be locked in? You got to take care of your body. You got to eat right. You got to rest. You got to keep watching the playbook. We're going to put in more stuff tomorrow. That's how we have to get to the first game in Vegas. The California Classic is important, but we need to build to get to Vegas and look like a team. Let's coach. Yeah. There you go. Bring it in. Good work today, y'all. Good work, y'all. Hard work. 1, 2, 3. Hard work.
So pretty cool there. That's just a quick preview to The Run. That was episode 2. It is a multi-episode series with all access to the Sacramento Kings. It goes over Kings' new assistant head coach and Summer League head coach Jody Fernandez and what he brings to the Sacramento Kings. Jody did work with Mike Brown in the past, including a run with an Olympic team. So he has a lot of experience there. But quick shout out to everybody that's in the chat here. Holy Goof, what is up? Fred, Sass, Sean, thank you guys all for joining us and welcome in. Yes, Sean, we're not drinking any beers right now, but Calvin and I had a really fun time in Wailea over the past couple days, enjoying some cold beverages by the pool and also at dinner last night. So no beers for me today, but great time this weekend. And Calvin, welcome in. Say hi to everybody.
What's up, guys? Yes, no beers for me either. I had my share last night as well, but that was fun. I hope you had a good time this weekend, Barry. We were celebrating you, of course. A couple days. We'll be live on your birthday, so I'll say happy birthday again, but I hope you had a good time.
Thanks, man. I did have a good time. It's always fun hanging out with good friends, having good food and good drinks. So awesome doing that with you. All right, so back to the show today. Let's talk about the Kings signed another guy, which is crazy because I had no idea they even had space for another guy. This is only a 10-day deal for this newcomer, which we'll talk about here.
Technically, they don't have space.
We'll talk about the passing away of a former coach, the Sacramento Kings. We're going to talk about the first game that's been announced over the Blazers. And then tomorrow is an exciting day. The full schedule for the entire NBA, including the Sacramento Kings, will be released tomorrow. So we will definitely kind of give a little bit of a preview today on what we think could happen. And then we'll talk about that more in depth on Thursday, like Calvin mentioned, as we go live. And if you want to join us tomorrow, we will be live. Wednesday night parties are back on at Basketball at the Bar. So make sure you guys check out our All NBA channel if you want to be part of that. Emerson, shout out to you. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. All right, Calvin. So let's jump here into the news of the day. I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, the Kings have signed Sam Merrill to a 10-day contract. Kings fans should be at least somewhat familiar with him, even though he hasn't played a ton in the pros. He went to Utah State, played with Neemias Queta, who is also a member of the Sacramento Kings. And they were a pretty good team in the Mountain West Conference. They upset San Diego State to what would have given them a berth to the NCAA tournament. But of course, the tournament didn't happen that year thanks to COVID. So he got, maybe a little less time to shine on the big stage, which maybe could have improved his draft stock. But he's always been a scorer, always been a great shooter. He was one of the leading scorers throughout his entire career at Utah State in the Mountain West Conference, and has been, like I said, a very good outside shooter as well. So he fits the mold, again, for what the Kings are trying to do here this offseason.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, right, the Kings wanted to add shooting. They wanted to add defense. We've seen a few guys that can do both of those things. Unfortunately, Sam is not that guy. He is a shooter. That's what he does. He's an exceptional shooter. So I think he will fill that role. But as you mentioned early on, Kings don't really have space here, right? This is a invite to training camp, a 10-day deal. The Kings are trying to bring in as much competition as they can here. Let the best person or the best group of players survive and move on to be with the Kings throughout the rest of the season. So shooting is very important. But as you mentioned, we don't know if this guy is going to be an actual member of the Kings this season, or if he's just kind of another body to put some more pressure on some of these guys at training camp. But the dude can shoot lights out. He won a championship with the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously didn't play that much. I think he's played only 36 games in his career. Started 2 of them. You can look right here at his averages, 3 points a game for his career. Nothing really special there. But you look at that career 40% 3-point percentage, which is exactly what the Kings were looking for here. But yeah, it's another addition. I can't really tell you what impact this guy's going to have on the Kings because we don't even know if he's going to make it, right? He could be 10 days and out in 10 days. He could sign another deal. He could be one of these amazing players that we saw the Miami Heat, take advantage of just a few years ago, bringing in a great shooter, integrating him into like a team system defense, hide some of the weaknesses, expose the things that he does exceptionally well, and let them prosper in that. But here's another guy that potentially spreads the floor for De'Aaron Fox, allows him to drive to the basket, play a little bit faster, and let Sabonis work inside. Any other thoughts on him, Cal? When you mentioned teammates with what's his name? Blanking right now. Keita, yes.
Back in college.
College teammates with Keita.
Yes. The only other thing I'll say is, I think it's just important to keep in mind, it's not necessarily that teams are putting more thought or more effort into these, last few roster spots now than before. But with COVID being a regular thing now every year, I think the way that teams try to plan for a situation like the Kings and a lot of teams got themselves into last year, where they had a bunch of players that had to go out on the COVID list.
Since 2000,
having players that you can rely on to step in and fill the hole for you while those guys have to sit out for 5 or 10 days or whatever the case may be, teams definitely have to take that pretty seriously into account now. So yes, it's all about creating this competitive balance in training camp and getting off to the right foot, having trusted guys in those two-way spots, the extra roster spots provided now thanks to COVID as well. But I think especially from last year when you saw guys like Robert Woodard, who's no longer with Sacramento, Jemias Ramsey, who's also no longer with Sacramento, teams are thinking hard now about, okay, if we get ourselves into a hole here and a bunch of our starters have to miss 4 or 5 games in a row, what's our sort of backup plan here? And not saying that Sam Merrill's going to come in and score 30 a game or anything like that, but teams are definitely taking this into account, I would say.
Yeah, and I think for me the biggest thing, right, is that just the ownership group has kind of stepped to the side and they've let the people they've hired, as in Monty McNair, Wes Wilcox, they've brought in their own coaching staff. They've identified areas of need that the Kings need to improve on, and they've attacked every single one of those areas this offseason. So, you look back just a few years, and the Kings are bringing in guys like George Hill, Zach Randolph. We're not sure exactly why these guys are brought in. It's just veteran leadership. We need more veterans. So it's good to see that they have a specific plan here, a specific plan for attack, and they're going in and filling in these things that they've identified as areas that the Kings need to improve. So I think this is another step in that direction. Shout out to Alfie, man. Shout out to Brian here. He's talking about a Grant's rant. I have not watched it. It's on Ben Simmons and the Sixers fiasco. We know that he just came to a settlement with them to recoup part of the $20 million that was withheld from him last year for missing games. This is about 3 minutes long, Calvin. Let's take a listen into Grant. We know you love Grant's rants. Here we go.
Today's rant brought to you by New Works Plumbing of Sacramento, locally owned for over 20 years. New Works has a...
I apologize if the sound does not match up perfectly.
Just go to newworksplumbing.com. That's NEWWRXplumbing.com. Hey, be sure and check out today's podcast. My guest, former NBA player Ryan Anderson. What an incredible journey he had when he was with New Orleans and his girlfriend committed suicide. He talks about how Monty Williams and his late wife Ingrid was a real instrumental rock for him during that difficult time. It's a phenomenal, fascinating conversation. Check it out today if you don't like that. You want to know what's wrong with pro sports and the NBA? Exhibit 1A, the Philadelphia 76ers and Ben Simmons. Yesterday, it was reported that the Sixers and Simmons have reached a confidential settlement over his contract dispute. Now, why it was a dispute in the first place, I have no idea. This is a guy that did not want to go to training camp, did not go to training camp, and then when he finally did report to the 76ers, he was going through the motions, he was a malcontent, he had his cell phone in his sweatpants during practice. Doc Rivers had to kick him out, and you know the rest of the story. He was then traded to the Brooklyn Nets where, oh yeah, by the way, he didn't play a game for the Nets either. So now the Sixers and Simmons reach a settlement because Philadelphia was withholding his pay. Can you imagine having a contract to work and you don't go to work and you let down all of your fellow employees who are counting on you to get the job done? And then when you do show up to work, you're half-assed, you're going through the motions,
Man,
you're
angry old man syndrome.
And then a couple of weeks later, maybe a couple of months later, your boss calls you and goes, hey, we want to talk to you. You walk into the office.
I feel like Jerry West would be really good at this.
Yeah, we know you didn't want to work. We know you didn't work. We know you didn't do a damn thing to help us out.
You mean the Jerry West that they got to play Jerry West on Winning Time, or the actual Jerry West?
We're going to pay you part of your deal anyway. What kind of world are we living in? Seriously. Can you freaking believe that? That's what happened with the 76ers and Ben Simmons. And once again, you want to know what's wrong?
Oh, man, I'm just going to leave it there. That's funny, man.
There's a reason why they call it a rant, right?
Yeah. I like Grant. I really enjoyed him as an announcer of the Sacramento Kings, but it's funny how it's just turned into this like old man YouTube channel of complaining about things. And that's basically what it is, right? Is like, oh, I want to hear Grant complain about something. Let's listen to Grant's rants. A lot of good connections. He's got a lot of good guests. And, you know, the dude is very, very knowledgeable about this subject. Just funny what it's kind of become. But, Calvin, I agree with him 100%, right? What about you?
Well, sure. I mean, there are definitely a lot of valid points in that, right? It would be impossible not to agree with some of the things that he says. I mean, the only caveat to what he's saying is, mental health. Like that's what Ben Simmons, that's one of the reasons, or the main reason why he stated he wasn't ready to play, right? And people can say, oh, well, he just didn't want to play in Philadelphia and all that stuff. But just like Grant said, he didn't play in Brooklyn either. And I assumed he wanted to be there. So that's the only problem I have with his rant, is that while all of that stuff is true, the reason he sat out is because he said he wasn't in the right frame of mind to play basketball. And it is impossible to get into somebody's mind and tell if they're really speaking the truth or not. That's all I'll say. Yeah. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty, right? Except Kyrie Irving.
I knew you were going to throw that in there. But yeah, it is tough, right? Like, even with an injury, right? Like, there's certain types of injuries where you're like, okay, there's bruising, there's swelling, obviously there's a fracture, or I can see your bone is sticking out of your skin, like there's something wrong with you, right? And then you have kind of like the soft tissue injuries that maybe don't show anything on the outside. And we saw multiple different people go through it. We saw Zion last year, right, saying, I can play. And the team's like, no, you can't play. We saw Kawhi Leonard go through it with the Spurs, right, where the Spurs are like, he's cleared, he's ready to play whenever, and he didn't feel like he was ready. So, those are all injuries that are not mental, right? The mental aspect is even more difficult to figure out, like, is this person telling the truth? How mentally hurt do you have to be to not be able to show up to work? Like, if you were to call into work, Calvin, and tomorrow morning you woke up and you're like, hey, my mental state is not right for me to come into work today. Your work might be like, okay, that's not really something we give days off for, but we understand you've been working really hard. Take a day or a couple days off and come back next week. But then if it goes weeks and months of that and there's no communication and all that, then it starts to kind of snowball. So it's a really, really tough situation here. And like you mentioned, mental health is very, very important. It's just really hard to tell how real things are at some point. And I'm not saying that, he was lying or that he wasn't being truthful or any of that stuff. I'm just saying as an outsider,
but he didn't do himself any favors either.
Yes.
Yeah, which is what Grant is also saying in there. Showing up to practice, looking like you don't want to be there, your cell phone's in your pocket, you're not participating in drills, all that stuff. All the things that we heard before it even got to that point where he was, frustrated with the way he was treated there and he wanted out and all this stuff. When you set yourself up like that, it makes it a lot harder to believe that you actually have this severe problem that is withholding you from playing games other than the fact that you just don't want to be there. But there's, I think, also a little bit of truth to that at the same time, as we saw in Brooklyn. They're saying that his back injuries are literally connected to his state of mind. Like his mind is telling him that his back isn't ready, and it's actually causing more stress on his back, which, whether you believe that to be true or not, that's where we're at right now. So it's just all goes to show why from day one I was saying stay away from this guy. It's not worth
good move, Monty.
The headache and the amount of money that you could potentially have to throw down in order to bring him in.
Yeah, and sometimes they say the best move is no move. The Kings not going after Ben Simmons is probably one of the best moves they made in the last 2 years. But then again, the butterfly effect, right? Maybe Sacramento trades for him at the start of last season. He starts all season with the Kings and goes on to win Defensive Player of the Year or something crazy. You never know. But from where I'm sitting right now, I'm very happy that Ben Simmons is not on this roster. What's up, Fred? Good to see you here. And we're working on the store. Ethan is taking over the store now, so we're working on some new designs, and we will have some ready before the season starts. So I will definitely keep you updated on that. Shout out to Jeff the Lefty. I see you here, lefties. Calvin, what do they say? They don't live as long as righties, right? Because of the mental impact on your brain of having to use right-handed scissors in school and all these things. As a left-handed person, real quick, Calvin, tell us about
also say lefties are smarter.
Tell us about your mental challenges of using right-handed scissors in school, and you still went, right? Like, I've only saw you miss a couple days.
I still went. I still went to school. Yes, I did have a lot of challenges. I was very anti arts and crafts and all that stuff as a kid because I couldn't decide on which hand to write with. And yes, if you've ever tried to use right-handed scissors with your left hand, it's very, very frustrating. It's very difficult. So I also had to learn how to golf righty because courses are made for right-handed golfers and not lefties. So yes, there's a lot of, our people have been beaten down for years, but we will always rise up and overcome.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Shout out to you guys all in the chat. You guys make us have fun here. I hope you're all enjoying listening as well, and all of our silly comments. So, but yeah, it's so crazy. But Ben Simmons did have a minor back surgery, correct, Calvin? I think it was in.
Well, I'm kind of in the
May.
same boat as Sass here. I don't know if there's such a thing as minor back surgery. He had a herniated disc, I believe, which is no laughing matter. Like, that's a pretty serious of situation to have to deal with. And he is saying, his doctors are also saying that his mental frame of mind or whatever is causing the back to not heal properly. And so he continues to have setbacks over and over again. That's why he ended up not playing for Brooklyn when they thought maybe he was going to make a return for the play-in tournament or the playoffs.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate. And you mentioned the phone thing with Ben Simmons. Did you see the highlights? I think it was a baseball player. I don't remember the name. Was he on the Pirates? Who slid into third, had his phone in his pocket. It flew out, and now he's suspended for a game.
Yes, he was on the Pirates. Yes, I don't remember his name either. I want to say he's crazy. A rookie or somebody that just recently got called up or something like that. But yes, that video's gone absolutely viral at this point. So,
and any of you that had a chance over the weekend to watch some of the Euro basketball, Bronny James, that right-handed dunk was incredible, going left. Not going to lie, Calvin, I was laying in the hotel room, enjoying myself in my room service in my bed, watching the game. It was a great morning yesterday. So that dunk just capped it all off for me. Very, very exciting.
Did you see that Skip Bayless is now going to spend his time coming after Bronny James as well?
Oh, man.
He announced that on First Take.
Yeah, Skip Bayless is,
whatever his show is now,
he's starting to see
Undisputed.
The end of LeBron's career, even though LeBron says he's still in his prime, and he's like, I'm going to be out of a job here in 4 years unless I find another target. If I just use the guy with the same name, then maybe I'll mess up less. I don't know. So a junior at the end of everything that he says?
Poor guy.
But he's going to have to change up his criticism because Bronny is a much better shooter than LeBron was. He's a better ball handler. Obviously, LeBron is better at a lot of things. But we'll see what kind of impact Bronny actually has in the NBA. And I was actually disappointed we didn't get to see Bryce play because I'm really, really, really excited to see Bryce. All right, hot take here from Sean. The Jazz.
He's very intriguing.
Jazz will miss the playoffs, and the Kings will be better than Denver. Keegan Murray will be a stronger and more efficient Michael Porter Jr. Wow, Calvin, thoughts on that?
The second part, I think there's actually a shot at that. I mean, Michael Porter Jr., if he comes back healthy and is able to play a whole season, his offensive numbers are going to look better than Keegan Murray's, I think, just because I think, is right now a more polished scorer at the NBA level. He's obviously had a little bit more time to play in the league and is familiar with how the up and downs of the game goes. And not to mention, he's just a really good scorer in general. But I think Keegan Murray is already a more complete player. I think he should be a better defender than Porter Jr. is. He could end up being a better rebounder. So that I like, that statement. It's not a guaranteed thing, but it's a good statement to make, I think, or a good prediction. The Jazz missing the playoffs, I think everybody is in that boat. If the Kings are better than Denver, we could be talking about one of the top 3 seeds in the West. So that would be an incredible surprise to me. But
yeah, that'd be absolutely incredible.
That's why they play the games.
And Sass, I think Spain beat Lithuania. Anyways, let's move on here.
I'm not up to date on that.
Some tragic news to announce. Hall of Fame ex-Princeton Tigers coach Pete Carroll dies at age 92. He was basically the guy that created the Princeton offense, or was well known for being one of the originators of the Princeton offense. Also an assistant coach with the Sacramento Kings under Rick Adelman during favorite years of Kings basketball in my childhood. Obviously during, the early 2000s and all that. So R.I.P. to Pete Carroll. But 92 years, man, that's a long time. That is a long time, and a hell of an impact he had on both the NBA and the NCAA. Princeton-style offense, you don't really hear that much anymore. But I think the last time we really had a debate about that was, I don't remember who it was. Was it Luke Walton tried to bring the Princeton offense to the Lakers?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, teams, every team uses some variation of it nowadays. The Princeton offense is all built about movement without the basketball, which literally 100% of teams, NBA teams and college teams, do some sort of movement without the basketball. Now you kind of have to. I think you see teams kind of fall a little bit off of it because now in today's age, everybody shoots so well from the outside that it's more, you try to set up more isolation stuff with pick and roll to leave a shooter open in the corner rather than having them constantly moving and back cutting and all that stuff. But the Golden State Warriors do this literally all day, every day. So it's an incredibly important thing in basketball history. There's a reason why, it's obviously as famous as it is. And Coach Carrill was very an incredibly impactful mind for a lot of young men that played the game for many years.
Yeah, I got a really good quote from him here, and it's funny, man. I bet you Kyrie Irving agrees with this very first sentence here. Anybody can coach basketball. I can tell you that right now. It's not that hard to know about a pick and roll, a back pick, a shuffle cut. I mean, it's not that hard. But what is hard is to see how to develop something, to have an idea how your team is going to play, and that comes under the header of thinking. That's a pretty deep quote there, because obviously not everybody can coach basketball, but there are a lot of really good basketball coaches. But I think what he's getting at here is the difference between a good basketball coach and an incredible transcending basketball coach is someone that is developing a style of play for their team, right? Like whether it's taking from some of the greats, somebody that you learn from, or building something yourself, but creating an actual style and a way of how you're going to play, how you're going to develop that offense, what you're going to do to like kind of run and build things off of each other is something that really separates him and a lot of the really, really good coaches. So I thought that was a great quote. Any other thoughts on him, Calvin?
Well, just to build off that statement, I totally agree with him. I think anybody can be a coach, but not everybody can lead, right? A great coach is viewed as a leader of men and or women or whatever, animals, whatever the case may be, the puppy bowl. But the difference between, somebody who's considered a great coach and someone who is just another coach is those legendary people who find ways to connect with their players and definitely, motivate them to want to be better every day, to want to try harder. I think every player or every kid growing up that has dreams and aspirations of becoming a pro basketball player, they're self-motivated, right? But in order to really succeed within a team construct, that's where your coach comes in. And not everybody is able to do that. But I think Pete Carrill, if you talk to people that played for him, he definitely was one of those people.
Yeah, really, really good point. Really, really good. Gilberto wants to know, do the Lakers sneak into the playoffs? Well, Gilberto, I put out a video on our other channel, Basketball at the Bar, talking about this subject if you want to check it out. But just to summarize, Lakers got to make a move here. They really do. Unless they can get Russell Westbrook to really buy in and be primary ball defender and corner three-point shooter and let LeBron and Anthony Davis run the show, they could sneak in the playoffs. Otherwise, I think they got to make a big deal. I think they got to pull the trigger on a Kyrie Irving trade. And if you're LeBron James, do not sign a contract extension with the Lakers. Wait until next offseason. See if you can add more talent to your team, then re-sign. You give your team cap flexibility. You're obviously already worth $1 billion. Maybe you do want that max deal, but timing does matter. We saw it with the Warriors in the re-signing of Steph Curry, the re-signing of Klay Thompson, and we saw it just recently here with James Harden returning to the Sixers. If your front office and your best player are on the same page and they're willing to work with each other, you can definitely, not really rewrite the rules, but squeeze in and out of these rules that are created and bring some more talent to your team. And that's bottom line what the Lakers need. I think losing Malik Monk is a huge loss for them. What are your thoughts, Cal?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said. Can they sneak into the playoffs? Yeah, they can. I mean, if Anthony Davis and LeBron both are healthy all year, play a bunch of games, I still think that they are, in order to be a contender or a playoff team, they're probably going to have to trade for Kyrie Irving, in my opinion. But look, if that happens and you've got Kyrie, LeBron, and Anthony Davis all healthy playing a bunch of games this year, it's hard to count that team out of at least a playoff spot, right? Like, I think that you have to give them a little bit the benefit of the doubt. I know the rest of the roster is not necessarily filled with a lot of big names, but they've got a few players that are still, capable of doing some damage. Kings fans know all too well how good Damian Jones was looking at the end of last year. So they're certainly a team that can end up in the postseason, but will they? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, and also, as we mentioned before, injuries are another huge part of this, right? Like, I would have told you the Lakers would have for sure been a playoff team last year. Injuries to LeBron, injuries to Anthony Davis. When you have the oldest roster in the NBA, injuries are even more magnified on your roster. But as far as this season goes, yeah, you need LeBron to be healthy. You need Anthony Davis to be healthy. But what happens to the Nuggets when the Nuggets are healthy? What happens if the Kings are up and coming? What if some of these other teams that have been injured last year, like the Trailblazers, are healthy this season? It's going to make it a lot harder on the Lakers. It really will. And I didn't even mention the Clippers.
Absolutely.
I didn't even mention the Clippers. The Clippers could be one of the top 2, 3, 4 teams in the West. They have one of the best players. I say Kawhi Leonard is at this point, I want to give him top 3. I'm going to say top 5 player in the NBA. You get that guy back, the Clippers could very well be right back in the mix, and all that makes it even harder for the LA Lakers. All right, I saw someone mention...
It's definitely not going to be easy for them.
I saw someone
Definitely
mention they're disappointed that ESPN ranked the Kings at 13th in the West, and I couldn't agree more. Just looking here at this roster, Calvin, it's filling in quite nicely. I love the speed of De'Aaron Fox. I love the shooting of Herter, Harrison Barnes. I love the addition of Keegan Murray. I really like moving Sabonis to the center position. And then this bench is amazing, right? Davion Mitchell, Malik Monk, Terrence Davis, Trey Lyles, Rashawn Holmes. That is a great second unit. Whether the Kings make another move or two here, I think is yet to be seen. But Calvin, let's talk a little bit about this first game. Now, the schedule hasn't officially come out, but we've heard quite a few rumors that the Kings are officially playing their first game against the Portland Trailblazers. If you would have picked the Trailblazers in your Kings poll, you might be winning free tickets to Game 1. So let us know down below in the comments or in the chat if you put the Blazers, because congratulations to you. But Calvin, just overall thoughts on this depth chart real quick, and then we'll jump into the Trailblazers.
Well, we've been saying it for weeks now. I mean, on paper, without actually seeing this team play any games, you've got to be excited. Like, they've added talent. They've added talent in the right positions. They've added, specific skill sets that they think and we all think are going to work well for how the team wants to play, along with their new head coach, who hopefully is going to be able to get them to play defense. So there's definitely a lot of reason to be optimistic. But as I've been saying, as you know, for weeks now, there's also reason to kind of take a chill pill as well, because all these other teams out in the Western Conference have also gotten better, whether it's just getting healthy or they've added somebody, through trade, draft, free agency, something like that. So they're definitely going to be a competitive team. But somebody just said in the comments here, where is it? We could finish 6th. We could finish 13th. I mean, there's a wide range for how this team could perform, and they're not proven yet either, right? Like, we've seen what Jamal Murray and Jokic look like together. We've seen what Kawhi Leonard and Paul George look like together. Those teams you would expect to be better this year than they were last year. You expect Luka to take another giant step forward here. Memphis is on the rise as well. It's going to be very difficult for Sacramento, but do they have a as good a shot as they've had in the last 16 years to make the playoffs? Yes, I think they do.
Yeah, shout out to Gilberto here. Some great comments by you. And I think the most important thing that you mentioned here is the Kings have to compete every single night, right? That was the thing that drives me crazy about last season, the year before that, was you have these nights where the Kings were supposed to win this game, and they just fell apart either in the third quarter or late in the fourth, and you're like, that's probably a game that's going to haunt you later on when you're looking at the standings and trying to reach that play-in spot. They made that mistake multiple times last. Not to mention the games that they got completely blown out and didn't even show up in. So I think that's a really, really good point, Gilberto, is the Kings have to be ready every single night. That's the difference between a good team and a bad team in the NBA, is a good team shows up every single night. And then, of course, there's great teams, and those are separated by coaching staff, schemes, players, stuff like that. But just bringing the energy every single night, Luke Walton was not able to do that for the Kings. We'll see if Mike Brown can do that. I think so. I got a pretty good feeling about it. Shout out to Progressive G here. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, let's jump here into the Portland Trailblazers. Pretty funny here. This is the ESPN depth chart. Looking pretty good for us, Calvin. I think we got this game one on lock, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
This is the Kings starting depth chart according to ESPN. Here's the Blazers. Somebody's not doing their job.
Yeah,
anyways,
missing a few players.
We can look at the roster here so far. You got Blevins. Wonder if he's related to an old roommate of ours. Greg Brown, Chris Dunn, DJ Ellaby, a bunch of no-name guys. Jeremy Grant was a big addition. Josh Hart, Joe Ingles was a big addition. Keon Johnson, you got Dame Lillard is back healthy, Nazir Little, Ben McLemore, Nurkic, Gary Payton. Huge move. I love Gary Payton's addition to this team. Then you have Shaden Sharp, who was drafted, Anthony Simons, who was re-signed, Brandon Williams, Justice Winslow, Cody Zeller. Calvin, overall thoughts on this Blazers roster?
Well, I think they're in a very similar situation to the Kings, right? If you're a Portland Trailblazer fan, you know, having gone through what you went through last year with Dame getting hurt, Nurkic gets hurt, McCollum gets traded, you have to feel like the sky is falling, right? But just like the Kings have added a bunch of new pieces that you haven't seen them all play together yet, but you're excited for what it could possibly look like. I think Portland is in the same boat, knowing they're going to get Dame back. Anthony Simons, you know, another year under his belt, coming off of a really, really good-looking season last year. Jeremy Grant's a big question mark. Gary Payton, you know, these are all nice pieces to have. The question is, how is it all going to fit together? So I think they're very similar to how Kings fans are looking at the Kings right now.
Yeah, I just want to show one of the biggest additions I think they made this offseason outside of Gary Payton in the draft was Jeremy Grant, right? He was the big acquisition, the trade. Been hearing about all these teams wanting to trade for him for the past 2 seasons. He finally gets out of Detroit and heads here to Portland. But, you know, the thing for him is, can he do it on a good team, right? You just take a look here at the stats. You know, he was with the Sixers, he was with the Thunder, then with Denver, all around 6, 8, 9, 12 points a game. Then he goes to one of the worst teams in the league, and all of a sudden it skyrockets to 22 points a game, and everyone's calling Detroit like, hey, we need to sign this guy or trade for this guy. Drops down a little bit to 19 last year, still had a great season, but this is a horrible team, right? And so that's my biggest key for him is there's always going to be that guy on one of the worst teams in the league that's going to put up 20 points a game, and he's going to get the stats because somebody's got to do it. But when he's not first, second, maybe even third fiddle on this team, then what does he look like, right? We know Lillard's going to get the majority of the shots on this team. Then after that, you have Shaden Sharp. What's going to happen with him? Obviously, he's a rookie. We're not sure, exactly how he's going to fit on this team. I do have to feel that, some of these guys are going to move up here in the rotation. We saw Anthony Simons play off the bench for the majority of last season until Lillard goes out and McCollum goes out. Is he going to come into the starting lineup here? And then how many shots is everyone else going to get? So it's kind of going to be an interesting season for the Blazers. They got a good foundation of Damian Lillard, right? Like, he's obviously, in my opinion, better than any player is on this Kings roster. But outside of that, there's a bunch of question marks. Anthony Simons, can he do it for a whole season? Can he play with Damian Lillard? Can Shaedon Sharpe make the adjustment from the G League to the NBA? How's Gary Payton going to do on a team that doesn't have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green? So, I think this team has a lot of potential, but I do have a lot of question marks. Joe Ingles coming back from an injury. Josh Hart, what's he going to be on this team? So I got a lot of questions about this Blazers team. And I do have to say, maybe the Kings benefit here meeting in the first game because the Blazers aren't going to have this time to kind of work out this new roster and some of these new pieces versus the Sacramento Kings are going to be going in with probably three of the same starters they had last year, just ready to kind of plug right in there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, no team is really the same on opening night as they are, midway through the season. But yeah, I agree with you completely. The Blazers have a ton of question marks, not just because they've got some guys coming back from injury, but they've got rookies, complete new additions to the team who are going to, perhaps play bigger roles than they've ever been used to before. Who ends up starting at the two guard is really the biggest question for me, right? Are you going to go with Anthony Simons because he's already got the familiarity with playing alongside Dame for a little while? Are you going to commit more to scoring, or are you going to maybe even think about starting Gary Payton a little bit at first early on in the year because you want more defense out there? Like, they have a ton of questions to answer, and I don't think they're going to know the answers to a lot of these questions for a while. And Shaedon Sharpe is definitely the biggest question mark. I don't really see him, even if he is fully healthy, playing that much early on for them, unless he just completely blows people away right from the get-go, which is, again, very rare. You don't see that too often. So, especially for a guy who didn't play at all in college last year. So they've got a ton of questions to answer. Absolutely.
Who are you taking game one? Kings, Blazers? You got a score that you're looking for? You think the Kings are going to score over 100, less than 100? What are your thoughts here?
I think the Kings will win this game. It's at home. I think the Kings are going to be more prepared to play this game. Again, I'm not saying that they're one team is better than the other right away from the get-go, but I think the Kings definitely have a leg up on Portland right now just because they have less questions to answer. They've got a bunch of people that are not coming off of injuries or still injured as well. So I think the Kings will end up winning this game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the Kings are going to score maybe 117 in this game, maybe closer to 120. I think they're going to be fired up. I think it's going to be game one. And I don't think Portland's going to be able to stop the Kings. They're trying to outscore. So I expect this to be a higher scoring game. Maybe the Kings will say, "Hey, we want to debut this new offense. We're going to keep the ball out of Damian Lillard's hands and make the Blazers beat us without Dame Lillard." So we will see what happens there. A couple updates from SAS here. The SF Giants just walked off. Congratulations to them. Also, apparently, Sky River Casino is open, the first casino inside Sacramento. Want to remind you all, if you do like betting and sports betting, we are sponsored by BetUs. If you want to bet with us, just click the link down below in the description. You get 125% of your first deposit. And Calvin gives out great betting advice, not financial advice. He gives out great betting advice. If you have any questions about who to bet on, we're happy to help you waste your money. Very, very happy. All right, Calvin. Have the official schedule released tomorrow. Unfortunately, we don't have much to say about that. I think it's safe to say The Kings are going to play Western Conference teams more than they're going to play Eastern Conference teams. They're going to play teams in their division more than teams not in their division. But I'm excited for Thursday. Thursday should be a good show, and we should have some more information here. But I think it's time, Calvin. We can open it up to questions. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them there in the chat. Also, if you'd like to call into the show, feel free to call in right now. All you got to do is dial 916-562-1130 on your phone. You can call into the show right now, and we would love to have you. Also, please don't forget to hit that like button. We got 20 people watching live here, only 15 likes. Mash up that like button, and also hit that subscribe button as well. But yeah, I'm excited for the season, Cal. I am really, really excited for this. If you had to place a bet on NBA champion, it's all your money. You're putting your life savings on. Who's it gonna be?
My life savings, okay. I'm going with the Milwaukee Bucks again. I think as long as they stay healthy, if Middleton was healthy last year, I think they would have beaten Boston. Who knows if they would have ultimately won the whole thing, but I just think that their window is still very much open right now. Giannis is as good as he's ever been, and the rest of the roster is built very well around them. They're a good team, very, very strong team. I'm not going to surprise anybody by saying that. So if they are able to stay healthy, I like Milwaukee's chances to not repeat, I guess, but to win another championship.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. I like Milwaukee as well. I think they're going to have a bounce back year. And also, Sass, thank you for the hat. I'm happy it's showing up in the green screen here. This is my Hawaii Kings hat, and I absolutely love it. Question for you, Calvin. Who would you guys trade for right now with the Kings assets? Is there one player that's really standing out to you that you're like, Kings need to go get this guy? And don't say Kevin Durant.
Man, that's tough. I don't know. I'd have to think more about that. Like, I think there are lots of players out there that you could make a really solid argument for the fact that they would help this team. When you start, dealing with hypothetical trade situations, it can get, as you know, because you love the trade machine so much, it can get pretty 2K-ish pretty fast. So I will say that I like the way that this roster is set up right now. I think that they should, at least start the season off with these guys, see what it looks like, see what happens. John Collins' name continues to get thrown out there. I still don't know if that's even, how much that really helps the Kings if they were to end up with John Collins on the roster tomorrow. Yes, I agree that he's a very talented player with a lot of upside, and can provide, a lot of things that the Kings would need, right? A lob threat for De'Aaron Fox, an athletic forward that can run the floor with these guards, somebody that can even stretch the floor a little bit. Isn't quite known as a great three-point shooter, but it's just hard, I think, to make any kind of assumption about this because here we go with the trade machine. You're basically saying, who can I trade one of, if not the combination of Harrison Barnes and Rashawn Holmes for? And when you deal with those hypotheticals, you're making an assumption that another team's GM will want to make that deal and want those players. So I think that's a hard thing to do right now, especially when training camp is about to open. But yeah, any other all-star that the Kings can go out and grab that's maybe not named Ben Simmons, I think they should at least, be calling about.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. And yeah, for me right now, it's like, do the Kings really pull the trigger on anybody? Is there anybody right now that I really think will push the Kings past their point that they're at already? I'm not really sure. The obvious answer, as I mentioned, would be Kevin Durant, right? Like, everyone wants to trade for Kevin Durant right now. I'm not that big on that. I'm not big on Kyrie Irving. still kind of confused about the John Collins situation. I do like him, but at the same time, it's like, why does Atlanta want to do this? What's the benefit really to Atlanta moving off of John Collins, other than the fact that maybe he's unhappy, which he said that he was unhappy before. They got him to stay. They got him to re-sign. And they're a much better team than Sacramento. So, with their additions they made this offseason, if I'm John Collins and I'm looking at my own roster, I'm probably happier on the Hawks than I am on the Kings. But yeah, as far as like a main guy that they bring in right now, I don't think I have one. I think I'm in the same boat as you, Calvin. I'm sit back. I like what I have. I'm being patient. If a great opportunity presents itself, maybe I take a stab at it. But I'm probably not going to make any more moves until we get closer to the trade deadline. Until I figure out exactly what we have, where this team's at, what Harrison Barnes looks like, what he wants to do as far as like contract extensions, or if he's even considering re-signing with the Kings next offseason. I agree with some of you guys here in the chat about a center. We need a shot blocker. I'm hoping Keita can be that guy. I'm hoping maybe Alex Len can help out a little bit. But I do like Sabonis at the center position from an offensive standpoint. I do love it from a rebounding standpoint as well, because the dude is an excellent rebounder. And that's been one of the Kings' biggest problems the past 5 years is they play excellent defense for 22 seconds. They give up an offensive rebound and they let up another bucket. That just totally kills you as a defender, right? And it makes you want to play less defense on the next possession down the court, because it doesn't matter how good your defense is if you're giving up offensive rebounds. So I would like to bring in another rim protector, but at this moment, I'm hoping Keita can be that guy. I really am. And I really liked Miles Turner and Sabonis. I love that combination in Indiana with a guy that could block shots and shoot threes to complement Sabonis. But where did that get them, right? Like, they had a couple good years, but they didn't really get anywhere. So, that is tough. But I like Sabonis at the center for now. I'm okay with that. Fred says Keita is in the future center. I hope. Yeah, Keita is the dark horse. Maybe Murray will be fine with Sabonis. And yeah, that's another thing too, right? Is what is Keegan Murray going to be? We saw him excel this summer, but what's he going to do playing against NBA players that are bigger, stronger, faster than him? How's he going to fit in on this Kings roster? I think he's going to be one of the candidates for Rookie of the Year. That depends on how well the Kings do this season, but I think he could very well be towards the top of the list in Rookie of the Year candidates. I think he has that potential. So we will definitely see what happens there. Calvin, do you think Keegan Murray will start day one?
I probably would if I was coaching this team. I like his fit on the rest of this roster. I think he's a very complete player. He is incredibly versatile, both offensively and defensively. I would definitely give him an opportunity. I think you can maybe make an argument for somebody like Trey Lyles to possibly get the experience nod. He definitely had some good games last year after being traded to Sacramento, and still provides, a lot of the same types of things. He can shoot it. He's good in the pick and roll. He's definitely not as, I think, quick-footed as Keegan Murray is. Keegan can cover a lot more ground quicker and easier than Trey Lyles can. But I already like Keegan Murray. I would definitely start him day one if it was me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You got to give the kid a chance. It's like what I was just talking about, bringing in George Hill and Zach Randolph, right? We did that right after we drafted high draft picks at those positions. Let's not do the same thing with Keegan Murray. Let's throw him out there. Let's see what he can do. Joseph's got a great question here, Calvin.
And I think having the...
But go for it.
I'll to add one more thing, for another reason why starting Keegan Murray isn't maybe the worst idea. The rest of this Kings starting lineup is, you can argue it's the best that it's been in a very long time, and they've got a lot of really good, strong veteran guys. Now adding somebody like Kevin Herter, who I assume will start at shooting guard, Fox, Barnes, Sabonis. And these guys have all played, obviously a lot of NBA basketball, all-star appearances for some of them, and played with really good teams. So I think that the fact that they've improved the overall talent of the roster as a whole, but specifically the starting lineup, means you can maybe take a chance here, if you want to call it that, and start Murray at the power forward.
Good point. Joseph Armstrong's got a great question here. Cat, I graduated from DHS, Davis High School, in 1998. Did y'all still throw ragers at the levee? Calvin, we know you're a rager. We know you like levees, so I'm going to let you take this question.
Well, I'm about to disappoint everybody after you teed it up for me like that. I didn't really party in high school. I didn't go to many of those parties. I never went to a party at the levee. So I don't know if you did, Barry, but
I was at the levee many times. Sorry, Mom. A lot of good times at the levee. Random fields. A lot of good times.
I did go to some parties out in the haystacks.
Yes.
Which I'm sure you were at some of those as well. But yeah, yep. I did not focus on that stuff a lot in high school. So. And
I think I can say this.
If you want to know where to party in Roanoke Park, though, I can definitely tell you where to go there.
I think I can say this now because I think the statute of limitations is up. But I partied in a lot of construction houses in Mace Ranch. By some really cool pools. Great times. I know Mike Bibby used to have a house over there. Didn't party in Mike Bibby's house, but hung out in a lot of construction because I lived in Mace Ranch when all that stuff was being built. So I got free plywood for my skate ramps. I got free nails for lots of other projects. So yeah, again, sorry, Mom. Oh man, Das wants to know how many cows have you tipped, Calvin? And real quick before you answer this, 0. Do you remember when we were at that A's game and those were the Yankees fans that were yelling at us? Like these little kids yelling at us. They started yelling, "Go back to your farm." Yeah. Go back to your farm, because apparently that is how you hurt the feelings of an A's fan. Anyways, go for it. Cow tipping.
Yeah, I have never tipped a cow in my life. Have you?
No, I have never tipped a cow ever in my life. Ever done it. Never done it. Shout out to Fred here.
Man, we're just airing all of Barry's dirty laundry right here.
You guys keep talking. They're going to ban you from Sacramento. I hope not. I hope not, Fred.
No, Fred, they would never do that to us.
Jeff had a fake ID and all. Yeah, you're a lucky guy, Jeff. I actually look very young, and I did at the time.
I did not have one of those either.
I did not get a fake ID because I had no chance of ever having anybody believe me that it was real. But I did have some good connections, and interestingly enough, I'm just going to tell another horrible story here about my background that you guys should not remember or record. But anyways, I had a friend whose cousin worked for, I think it was Miller. He was a delivery driver for Miller Beers, so he would deliver beers to all these different places. And he told me, don't know if this is true or not, but he told me that one year they didn't have enough to give them all Christmas bonuses. So what they did was they allowed everybody into the warehouse and they could fill up a truck with as much beer as they wanted. So anyways, I went over to this guy's house, and his garage was a 2-car garage, stacked solid with just cases of beer everywhere. So I got some beer from him. But I was definitely 21 plus when all this stuff happened. So you guys know. 21 plus.
At least your ID said you were 21? Is that what you're saying?
No. And Fred, McLovin is the way to go because, we live in Hawaii. Whenever I would come back to California and show my Hawaii ID, like for 10 years, I got, okay, McLovin, okay. People didn't even believe
Every time.
that was real.
Every
But
time.
I actually,
They still do it.
I'll throw it out here. I just got my new ID. Pretty cool. A new design, but it's still paper. Got it. Bam. Just renewed my license. Look at it. It's a piece of paper. Yep. Sorry. It's legit. Legit. It's printed on a piece of paper. Gotta love Hawaii. Hawaii. All right. Brian says, I went to high school at Casa Grande, college at Santa Rosa JC, lived in Rohnert Park for about 10 years. That's awesome. And now I live in Sierra Foothills. That's really cool, Brian.
Shout out.
Calvin and I both went to Sonoma State. I took some summer classes at Santa Rosa JC. We lived in Rohnert Park, Cotati, Santa Rosa. I worked at the Petaluma 101 Casino. We both worked at Sports City Indoor Soccer Center in Santa Rosa and Cotati. Just got to throw it out here. Calvin and I were both too tall to wear the Kicker the Bunny costume, so I love that. We had to make all the high school kids wear that. But a great area. And I actually lived in Rohnert Park until I moved to Hawaii. So cool there. And Calvin, you want to give them your story in Rohnert Park? Because you didn't come straight to Hawaii from there.
I did not go straight to Hawaii. Yeah, we got there right around the same time. I went to Sonoma State, as you mentioned. I think the only thing that you didn't mention is that I managed the In-N-Out Burger in Rohnert Park for a number of years. I worked there for a long time. I opened the Santa Rosa In-N-Out. I worked at the Mill Valley In-N-Out Burger. So that was definitely my home for a long time, was those stores. A lot of hours spent in those stores, but a lot of great friends made as well. And then I ended up I wanted to go back to school, so I moved to Michigan, which is where my mom's side of the family is from. You guys probably hear me talk about the Michigan Wolverines basketball and football team all the time. I am a diehard fan. And then I got tired of shoveling driveways, so I came out to Hawaii, and Barry basically put on a recruiting trip for me to move to Maui, and needless to say, it worked, and I've been here ever since.
We got him. Yeah, Progressive G. Sonoma State is an interesting school. It's actually grown quite a bit since we were there. I have 3 younger cousins that all went there after me. I actually got lost on campus there just a few years ago with all the new buildings that they built. But yeah, when I first went there, it was like 70% female, 30% male. Then I think all the males heard about that.
Yes.
And then I think when I graduated, it was more like 60-40. But another interesting fact about Sonoma State, Calvin, there's a lot of people that said this was a rumor. I don't think it was a rumor, but maybe clothing optional campus. You want to elaborate on that?
The only thing I will add to that is I wore clothes to campus every day. But I heard that rumor as well.
Apparently, if you brought a towel with you, you could go anywhere you wanted naked. You just put the towel down before you sat down. I guess that was a cleanliness issue, but interesting stuff. We're talking
cool
about
story about Sonoma State.
Go for it.
I'm sure a bunch of people know this, especially Bay Area fans or 49er fans, but they used to have a football team. They lost to the football team in the 90s, but Hall of Famer Larry Allen, of course, played football at Sonoma State. I actually cooked him some food at In-N-Out a couple of times, and the amount of food that he orders when he comes in is ridiculous, as you would probably imagine.
Undefeated since 96. Yes. Got it. We got it. All right, Calvin. I think that is enough personal stories for the day. We will go ahead and wrap up the show. We appreciate you guys all for joining us, taking the time out of your day. Please don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We will be back tomorrow on Basketball at the Bar, covering the entire NBA. We'll be talking about the full schedule release, and then we'll be back on this channel on Thursday with some more Kings updates and maybe even more funny stories from Calvin and I's childhood. So thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate you all. Calvin, last words?
Thanks for watching, you guys. Thanks for listening to our stories about being stupid kids and not talking about basketball for probably the most amount of time that we have on this channel ever. So
Hey, we all know that half of this channel is therapy sessions for Kings mistakes and losing games and all that. We will be here for all of your therapy needs before and after games. Thank you guys so much for listening, so much for watching. You guys have a wonderful evening. Go Kings.